Your phone screen lights up with an incoming call, but instead of picking it up, you just stare at it vibrating. Your stomach drops, your heart races, and you wait agonizingly for the ringing to stop, only to text back 5 minutes later. Sorry, I was busy. What's up? Why does a simple act of answering the phone feel like an overwhelming threat? Why would someone rather cancel long-awaited plans, locking themselves in a quiet room, than step outside to face perfectly harmless social interactions? You might assume they are simply introverts, or perhaps socially anxious individuals who hate people. But what if there is a deeper, more exhausting truth? The reality is, pushing everyone away isn't about arrogance or a lack of love. It is a desperate, silent survival mechanism operating in overdrive. But here is the most intriguing part you probably didn't know. This intense avoidance is often a sign of a brain that cares far too much, rather than too little. Society is quick to label those who withdraw from the world as antisocial, excessively introverted, or battling severe social anxiety. The common assumption is that these individuals simply harbor a deep-seated dislike for human interaction or lack the basic desire to connect. But what if their isolation has nothing to do with a distaste for people, and everything to do with a nervous system that is chronically overwhelmed? According to Dr. Stephen Porges's polyvagal theory, introduced in 1994, our autonomic nervous system dictates our capacity for social engagement. When a person's brain repeatedly perceives emotional demands, expectations, or social pressures as threats, it triggers a dorsal vagal shutdown, a profound state of biological freeze. Their avoidance is not a deliberate personality flaw. It is a primal defense mechanism desperately trying to conserve energy and protect them from further emotional taxation. They aren't pushing you away because they do not care. They are pushing you away because their internal alarms are deafening. But here's the critical turning point you need to understand. While this shutdown begins as a protective shield, it slowly morphs into an invisible prison. So what are the hidden behavioral signs that someone is silently trapped in this exhausting cycle of avoidance? Characteristic 1. The paradox of connection. Deep down, you likely harbor a profound craving to be truly understood by another human being. Yet the moment someone actually tries to step into your inner world and offer that connection, an invisible alarm goes off. You immediately build impenetrable defensive walls, pushing them away with vague excuses or a sudden, icy emotional distance. It is a confusing internal tug-of-war. You deeply want connection, but emotional intimacy feels inherently dangerous. Consider the intense, almost intoxicating wave of relief that washes over you when a friend cancels plans at the very last minute. Even if you just spent hours getting dressed and ready, you are not celebrating their absence. You are celebrating the sudden, immediate release of social pressure. This is the ultimate paradox of connection. Scientifically, this represents an ongoing conflict within the brain's amygdala, the region responsible for scanning your environment for threats. According to research by Dr. Amir Levine, 2010, on adult attachment and neuroscience, a highly sensitized amygdala often misinterprets closeness as a potential precursor to abandonment or emotional engulfment. As a result, your brain calculates that complete isolation is a much safer bet than vulnerability. Have you ever desperately wanted a comforting embrace, only to physically flinch when someone actually reaches out to touch you? But this conflicting desire for and fear of closeness is not even the most exhausting part of this psychological dynamic. Characteristic 2. The leaky social battery. It is not just about feeling tired after a social event. You often feel completely drained just thinking about having to interact. You might be incredibly charming, empathetic, and highly functional at work. But the moment you cross the threshold of your front door, you power down entirely, unable to summon the energy to reply to even a single text message. Society often views this extreme exhaustion as a lack of social skills or simple laziness. But what if your brain is actually working overtime, processing too much invisible data at once? This phenomenon is a profound neurological tax. According to research by Colin DeYoung, 2013, on the brain's reward sensitivity and personality traits, highly sensitive individuals expend a massive amount of cognitive energy constantly reading the emotional states, micro-expressions, and unspoken expectations of others. Your external kindness and adaptability out in the world are often well-rehearsed defense mechanisms designed to keep people from asking questions and demanding more of you. Have you ever noticed that your social battery drains significantly faster around people who require you to perform, rather than those who just let you exist in peace? However, the line between temporarily recharging your battery and permanently locking yourself away is dangerously thin. Characteristic 3. The anesthesia of silence. Initially, withdrawing from everyone feels like a necessary retreat, a quiet, sacred space to heal, recharge, and find your center. But gradually, this silence transforms from a temporary remedy into a highly addictive anesthetic. You might start rejecting all forms of help, stubbornly insisting on navigating life's hardships entirely alone, convinced that no one out there is truly safe or reliable. Society often applauds this fierce self-reliance, admiring you as a strong, independent individual who does not need anybody. However, psychologically, this extreme isolation is known as hyperindependence. It is not a sign of inherent strength, but rather a profound trauma response masquerading as self-sufficiency. According to Dr. Bessel van der Kolk's landmark research on trauma and the nervous system, 2014, when early emotional needs are repeatedly unmet or dismissed, the body adapts by shutting down its social engagement systems to prevent any future betrayal. Why does your brain eventually decide that weathering the storm alone in the dark is infinitely safer than seeking shelter with others? You might convince yourself that you simply prefer your own company and have outgrown the need for people. But the real answer to this extreme isolation lies buried in the years you thought you had already left behind. To truly understand this profound level of avoidance, we must look beneath the surface of your present habits and venture into the foundational years of childhood. For many who chronically isolate themselves, this extreme behavioral pattern did not develop overnight. It is often the delayed, compounding consequence of growing up as an ignored child or experiencing early parentification, a demanding environment where a child is forced to take on heavy adult emotional responsibilities far too soon. When we examine the roots of this phenomenon through the lens of avoidant attachment theory, pioneered by psychologists John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth in 1978, a heartbreaking reality emerges. When a child's early emotional needs are consistently dismissed, met with frustration, or treated as an exhausting burden by their primary caregivers, the developing brain makes a critical, self-preserving calculation. It forms the rigid core belief that relying on others inevitably leads to disappointment, rejection, or pain. Consequently, the brain concludes that the only way to guarantee emotional safety and avoid getting hurt is to never need anyone in the first place. Biologically, this early emotional neglect fundamentally rewires the brain's responses. The nervous system learns to deliberately suppress the ventral vagal pathways, the neural circuits responsible for social engagement, vulnerability, and trust, in order to prioritize basic psychological survival over human connection. You are not broken, and you do not inherently hate people. Your brain is simply executing an outdated survival program that once kept you safe in an emotionally barren environment. But here is the crucial realization you must face before it is too late. Understanding this deep-seated wound is the ultimate key to soothing it, but we must be incredibly careful not to fall into another dangerous psychological trap disguised as healing. While understanding the biological roots of your avoidance is a powerful step toward self-awareness, we must be careful not to romanticize this extreme isolation. Pushing everyone away is not a superpower of ultimate independence, nor is it a sustainable lifestyle. Prolonged self-isolation can eventually lead to cognitive decline and emotional numbness. Please remember that this analysis is strictly for educational purposes and is not a substitute for professional psychological or medical advice. Furthermore, human behavior is incredibly complex. The line between needing healthy solitude to recharge and falling into a trauma-induced avoidance cycle varies greatly depending on your personal context and cultural background. Not everyone who enjoys being alone is secretly traumatized, just as not everyone who withdraws does so maliciously. Recognizing exactly where you stand on this spectrum is a critical moment of reflection. So how do you begin to safely dismantle these invisible walls without feeling completely overwhelmed? Ultimately, the intense urge to avoid everyone is rarely born from malice or superiority. Whether it manifests as a constantly draining social battery or a heavy reliance on the anesthesia of silence, this hyper-independence is fundamentally a biological survival strategy. Your nervous system is merely trying to protect you from the emotional exhaustion and childhood wounds that originally taught you vulnerability is dangerous. However, the invisible walls built to keep out pain often end up keeping out the human connection and healing you truly deserve. You do not have to forcefully tear down your fortress overnight, but perhaps it is time to gently crack open a window. What is one small, safe step you can take today to let a little bit of light back into your world? If this psychological analysis resonated with your journey, please share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Like this video, share it with someone who might need to hear it, and subscribe to our channel for more deep, introspective storytelling.